Hey everyone, welcome back to the Diet Life Mastery Podcast. I'm Joe Klemczewski with Dr. Kori Propst. And today, Kori, we're going to be talking about what I think is one of the biggest buzzwords of our time, self-awareness and how to understand ourselves. And the interesting thing to me, just to start the conversation, is it's a maturation growth process that we all kind of understand, because we can look back at years past in our own lives and say, man, I've grown so much and I know so much more. And we can talk about what self-awareness is, but do we really know what we're not yet not aware of? And
I know.
When we're dealing with other people, are we willing to give them the slack and the forgiveness that maybe they just aren't where we are?
Yeah.
Big topic.
It's really nuanced. It's very complex. And I chose to make it the very first topic of the Mental Edge Academy for the month of January. And it's been a really interesting discussion that we've been having in that group. The conversation that we were having before we started recording was literally all about that. What I was noticing about myself in terms of how I was responding to this one person or two or three people, and the pattern of behavior that I've recognized I demonstrate. And one of the things that we started doing in the Mental Edge Academy is spending 5 minutes a day doing kind of a self check-in and pausing and asking, like, how have I been? And by that, I mean, like, what patterns of behavior have I found myself in? I'll give you an example. One of the things I understand about myself, and this is a fairly sort of new understanding, and put a pin in that. We never stop learning or understanding who we are, why we do what we do, in what sort of situations we do these things. But I recognize that I have this sort of speaking style that is almost, and you and I have talked about how we're teachers, right? But it's not necessarily proselytizing, but it comes out like this in some situations with some people, a lot of situations and a lot of people. Let me back up a little bit. Have you thought about, or what if we looked at it from this perspective? Or do you think that maybe you could, and there's almost this gross, Joe, like gross, and this is not conscious, sort of moral superiority, like the way that I do things is the way that everyone else should consider doing things too, because it is the best way.
Well, so you mentioned the phrase teacher, the position that we put ourselves in. I mean, we're academics and we do what we do because we love to help other people, and so it absolutely can come across as condescending and pretentious. But first of all, we have to understand the intent. Anybody when they're trying to help somebody, but how it is received and how we have to, from a self-awareness perspective, learn to offer maybe not everything all at once and maybe not right at that moment, but to be able to say, look, I'm seeing this from a higher level, bigger, 30,000 foot view, and I can just tuck that away, be with that person in the moment, and not worry about having to just purge all of this information because I want to help them right now.
Absolutely. There's presence that can be there just to hear and be and feel into whatever situation we're in, like you said, without having to change it in any way.
Can I say something else that I think is like foundational to even understanding that point?
Absolutely.
So think back to one of the famous quotes from Marx, who said, people have illusions. People have delusions because they're self-protective. And if you just strip away those illusions, you're ignoring that they've created those illusions because of a condition.
Correct.
And so we have less self-awareness about some things because we're protecting ourselves. And if you strip that away and shine a spotlight on something that's uncomfortable, that may not be the best approach to teach or help somebody. So we have to understand that you know, there's a reason they feel this way. They're saying these things, or they're doing these things, and let's not just try and quote fix it from the top down, but get in there and understand it.
Two things you said, or I have two things to say based on what you just said. Joseph Campbell, he illustrated awareness in this diagram. So it's a circle, and there's a line through the middle of the circle. Everything on the bottom half of that circle is outside of awareness. So these are the things, these are the defenses, the protections, the old dysfunctional patterns of behaviors based on messages we received from long ago that we're not aware of. But because we're not aware of them, we're identified with them. So that means, you know, they're actually driving our behavior. We've heard that most of our behavior is based on our unconscious. Yeah. So we're fused with those things because we don't know what we don't know that's underneath that line. Above the line, that's in the light of awareness. So these are the things that you and I are talking about right now. My patterns of behavior that I'm noticing, like when I'm in conversation with Ben or with friends or with you, for example, we act different ways with different people based on the dynamic of the conversation. And a lot of time, if we're aware, we can be like, what am I protecting myself from right now? Like I can feel my body tensing up right now and I feel myself getting upset. You and I had a conversation the other day where you had said something to a client. I was privy to that. And I took it personally. I absorbed that as there is something wrong with me. And then, but I noticed it. That was an awareness for me. And I was like, I need to bring that to Joe. And I need to check in with him about that so he can let me know whether that's right or wrong, or, you know, it was a defense mechanism on my part. It was protecting kind of a little wounded part of me from long ago. And so that's the second thing I wanted to say. What are we, you know, you mentioned protection. What are we protecting? Well, all of us have we all have basic fears. From the time we were born, we were being conditioned by the environment, by the people that we were surrounded by, or not surrounded by, or not loved by, or cared for when we needed to be. We may not have been seen. We may not have felt safe. You know, there may have been neglect or some sort of abuse. There may have been neither of those things, but either way, we picked up messages about what was wrong and what was right and how we should live and the way that we should be and how we should act, all that stuff. And these basic fears, they include things like, you know, I just have a basic fear of being defective or bad. And so if that's my basic fear, I'm probably going to be engaging in behaviors to fix. There's a level of perfectionism there. Like, no, it could be better. That needs to change right now. This is the best way to do it because that makes me safe.
And because you're so aware of that in your own life, then you start being more aware of it in other people's. And that's why you're like, oh my gosh, I know it could make this person feel so much better. I know what could help them. Here's something I've been learning about myself. And then you gush that out there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm totally on board and know that that's something I have had to watch and navigate through as well. And I'm certainly not there, but it's new to me. And if I had this conversation with you 5 years ago,
mm-hmm.
you would be talking to a whole different Joe. Because
I remember the Joe that I met when I first started our work together in 2008. We both acted very differently. Yes.
But there's that individual need for self-awareness we're talking about that's the only way we're going to grow. And every step we've ever taken forward is through greater self-awareness. But the social psychology part of that, knowing that other people are going through the same thing, and knowing that we can't just project ourselves into them, that's new for me. That's a big work area for me, in that instead of saying, well, that's stupid, or why would you believe that? Or, you know, it's like, hey, wait a second, let's be like Marx and say, hey, they have those illusions for a reason. Yep. They're working quite well for them. They may be protecting them, and you're going to go in there and chop their knees out from under them just because you're trying to help. and that's not help. So,
and or think that what you're dealing with is the same thing that they're dealing with. So like you may have a fear of being bad or defective, while other people fear being completely without support or guidance. And other people may fear being incompetent or incapable. And other people may fear just any level of significance in their lives. Or other people may fear being like harmed or controlled, or having a severe loss of connection. Any of those things are going to amount to different patterns of behavior and ways of being in the world and with people. The second thing I want to say, Joe, based on the social psychology that you brought up, is one of the best ways to practice self-awareness and to learn about ourselves is within relationship. Like, I can go through my entire life by myself. Like, I could live by myself, eat by myself, do everything by myself. And how am I ever going to know what's going on? Like, I guess it wouldn't really matter if I was always by myself, but it is literally within relationships where we are challenged to question, like, what did I just do? What just happened here? How did everything just blow up right now? Why did I use that tone of voice? How come I just got scared? How come they just got scared? Why did they just completely shut down and get defensive or stonewall in this situation? And so within relationship is where we can challenge ourselves to ask the really tough questions.
I listened to a psychologist recently who really painted a great picture of that, and how we need other people in our lives like that, or we will literally become insane or narcissistic or some other level of mental instability, because we just don't have those other people as buoys to help guide us and be mirrors to who we are.
Yep.
Yeah. So there are so many layers to this. I mean, because this is who we are. This goes through every single layer of our being. So we'll probably wrap it up here for this one, Kori. But if there's one step for somebody who says, "Wow, I don't even know if I am self-aware about anything. Like what am I supposed to be looking for? What would you tell people? Like this is you mentioned having that 5-minute check-in. What are you doing in that moment to say, wow, this is what I'm going to be working toward?"
So, I look at this in terms of sitting with ourselves. If we're unwilling to sit with ourselves and we're constantly just going through our days, checking off the list from one thing to the next, we're automatons. We're not paying attention to what we're feeling, what's going on inside of our bodies, how our minds are working. Like all of us can easily say, yeah, I know that I think. I'm a human, so I think. But who's actually doing the thinking? Like, do you think about how you think? Do you think really fast, or do you think really slow? Or in what situations does thinking shut down for you because you start to get really, you feel like your body's tightening up and you get uncomfortable? I think there's a number of questions that we could begin asking ourselves, but in that 5 minutes, it's literally, I'm going to breathe. I'm going to take 3 big, deep breaths. And then I'm going to ask myself, what's here? Start noticing the thoughts that go through your head. Write them down. Are they worry thoughts? Are they anxiety thoughts? Are they joyful thoughts? Are they thoughts about other people? Are they thoughts about not measuring up? Or what are they about? Start there. It does not have to be complicated.
That's pretty profound. I mean, it sounds so simple, but that is that first step of understanding what's even floating around in your head.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome, Kori. Well, thanks for that. I get so much out of this. It's like therapy for me every time we talk, but I hope so for you guys who are watching and listening as well. Stay tuned, subscribe to the Diet Doc Life Mastery podcast, because we're going to keep bringing these kinds of issues to your attention and happier, better lives.
Thanks, guys.